And today we're going to talk about synchronicity. It's one of my favorite little short mini topics that I could talk about for hours. Synchronicity is something Carl Jung really dove into, and it's through some of his lenses of perception that we're going to talk about synchronicity today. But before we jump into that, I want to talk to you about the word coincidence. And this is something that I believe very strongly in, and so I really want to share this with you. The word coincidence was brought into the English language. Who knows really how many hundreds of years ago? It really depends on what you believe, the timeline that we live in now. But the reality is it was brought in as a word to dummy down your intuition so that you didn't have a rapport with your own intuitive hits. And synchronicity falls right in with that, because if we chalk everything up to being a coincidence in life, then we'll never look on those synchronistic events as having the higher meanings that they do. So the next time that you even use the word coincidence, I'm going to offer this lens of perception for you. I'm going to offer that you try and remove that word from your language, so that the next time you catch yourself even saying it, you're going to hear my voice in the back of your mind going, Marie said get rid of that word, because it dummies you down. All of these skills that come in through our intuition are brushed off as something coincidental, so that they mean nothing. Oh, it's just a coincidence, but it's not. Things aren't ever just a coincidence. There is always a higher meaning. So let's go through 3 different synchronicities that can happen in life, and then you're going to stop using the word coincidence when these synchronicities start showing up, because you're going to realize that there's higher meanings here. So the first synchronicity, we've all experienced this, where, you're thinking of someone and all of a sudden they phone you, or something like you're thinking of someone and all of a sudden they show up at your house and you're like, oh, isn't that interesting? Isn't that a coincidence? I was just thinking of you. But it's not a coincidence, because remember, everything is energy. Your energy, your thoughts are energy, what you're thinking is energy. So if that person that just phoned you, they were obviously thinking of you. You were plugged into that energy sequence. You already had that intuitive hit, that synchronistic hit come through, that, oh, I knew that was going to be you. Because we've all experienced that, and we all do the same thing because we've been programmed by society or our peers or our tribe, whatever that is for us. We've all been programmed to believe that some little thing like that is just a coincidence, that it means absolutely nothing. But it means everything. Because now that I've pointed it out to you, you're going to pay attention to this more and more in your life. And these little synchronistic events, like what I've just described to you, are going to start showing up more and more and more. And you're going to catch yourself, and you're going to remind yourself that that word coincidence really is meant to just destroy your intuition, the whole word. So toss it out of the English language for yourself. It's absolute garbage. The second type of synchronistic event that can happen is when, we know something is going to happen at a distance, that something with someone wasn't right. That's an intuitive hit. That's a synchronistic event. That's you being plugged into the energy centers with more conscious awareness. Because remember, you'll become more aware of the synchronistic events in your life as you become more conscious, as you become more aware of the choices that you make that either empower and disempower your life. That is known as optimal intuition, when we can know something's happening at a distance. And I'm sure we've all heard a million stories over our lifetimes of people that have, maybe had a child in another country, and they knew the instant that that person was in an accident or something had happened to them. It's not because of who you are as far as your lineage. It's not because your grandmother was, a soothsayer or a gypsy or a medicine woman. It's not because of that. Your intuitive skill set is part of the skill set that you come into life with. And in fact, every plant and animal out there in the world is intuitive. Animals live by their intuition. They have that skill set honed to an absolute perfection of frequency. It's something we've been dummied down with. So I want to help revive that with you. You're paying attention to those synchronistic events and knowing that there's higher meaning to them. Now, are you going to understand what all of those higher meanings are right away? Of course not, because nothing happens overnight. These skill sets come with time and learning how to use them and learning how to allow them to become something that you use on a daily basis rather than thinking of it just once in a while. So honing into these synchronistic events automatically tunes you more into your own intuitive skill set. And the third pattern of synchronistic events, and this is a really big one, and this one will start to make more sense as you cultivate your own intuitive skills, okay? And this is where two completely unrelated events in the physical world come together in your awareness, and they have a higher meaning, and you know it instinctively. I'll give you an instance that this happened in my own life a number of years ago. Someone had contacted me early in the morning with a piece of information. I took that piece of information in, and in barely 10 seconds later, another piece of information came in. And to anybody else in the normal physical world, these two things would not have been related at all, but I made the connection instantly. And at that moment, I had to make a phone call and let somebody know, and it ultimately ended up being something that ended up saving their life. This type of synchronistic event has probably passed you by 1,000,000 times in your life because you've never ever paid any attention to it. But as you start paying attention to those first simple synchronicities, right? Where you just know it's someone that's phoning, or you just knew someone was going to pop in that day, or something like that we've always chalked up to a coincidence. And you're going to pay more attention to those, and then you're going to start paying attention to those other things, like driving home from work and all of a sudden, boom, someone just popped into my head that I hadn't been thinking about at all. And you realize that, oh, you just got an intuitive hit. And you maybe, when you get home, you maybe phone that person or text them or email them or whatever, and maybe something happened to them that day. And they were like, wow, how did you know that? Well, that's you being plugged into that energy frequency. And the reality is, as much as sometimes as you're discovering this all about yourself, it can feel a little overwhelming. The reality is, we are living in such a fantastic time right now, and we are all waking up to the value of energy, our own power, what that looks like to us, how we move through life, how we run agendas, and when we catch ourselves doing that, we learn not to. It is about learning about that energy as medicine for our body, because it is. Because remember, every time that we learn to let go of something from our history, it brings that trapped energy from that time period back to the here and now. Don't allow yourself to get caught up in trying to remember everything all at once. Take it as it comes into your awareness. So if only one thing I said today sticks into your mind, let that be. Let that resonate with you, and let yourself work with that skill set. As you start working your way through paying attention to these synchronistic events that go on in your life, you're going to discover a richer, more powerful part of yourself. And like I said when we talked about intuition in a previous video, your intuition is intimately tied to the synchronistic events that happen within your life, because they're speaking each other's language. They're kind of one and the same. So start paying attention a little bit more to those subtle synchronicities in your life, and then start paying attention to the bigger ones and see if you can start creating that awareness within your own consciousness to allow yourself to cultivate your skill set so that it empowers you and it helps you move into those qualities of life that allow life to be so full and rich and worth living. So, as always, if you've liked what I've had to share with you today, hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, and if you're a little bit more intrigued into the course of The World Behind Your Eyes, have a look at the link in the description that will then take you over to my website, and you can scroll through the course overview and see if that's indeed something that you would like to bring into your practice. Thank you for joining me today. Have a wonderful day.